Good afternoon. I'm Kyle, as Jeremy mentioned. I am really excited to talk to everybody about this topic because for the last few years it's been really important to me. And I want to start with a story. 15 years ago this month, a lady by the name of Deborah Klarfeld called me into her office and said, "Hey, I am starting a product group and I'd like for you to be part of it." And I said, "Great." And I was so focused on my career at that time that the only question I thought to ask Deborah was, "Are you going to pay me more?" What I'm trying to illustrate here is that throughout your career, your focus on your career is going to ebb and flow. It's not always going to be the primary focus of what you're doing each and every day, and sometimes it's going to drop off. For me at that point in my life, it wasn't that important to me. And I look back and realize that maybe it should have been. Or maybe there were other times in my career where I should have been more focused on it. So today, we're going to be talking about advancing your career. And whoa, you weren't kidding. This really does go 2 slides forward. Our goal today is really just to create a dialogue about our careers here in product, and specifically here in Utah. Whether you have been in this career for a while or you're getting started, I'm going to guess that you get a lot of people asking questions about how to take the next step, how to get involved, and a lot of us have our own experiences, but we don't know all the answers to the questions that people are seeking. What we've done today is we've assembled 3 individuals who are going to be sharing their experiences with everybody so that hopefully you guys can at least see how they have approached it, because the way I've approached it has been different from everybody else. And we've got 3 people that represent a good cross-section of a career, at least in product. Also, I think it's worth noting, we're running, we've got, apparently there was a wreck on I-15. Hopefully everybody's okay. But I think that there's going to be some people that are going to be a little bit late. So if you hear some noise, please don't allow that to distract you. So along with me today are 2 people that are really special to me. I'm so very fortunate to have them in my life. The first one is Josh Tolman. Josh and I have been friends for many years. We used to work together at a building right around the corner. And he and I'm really very fortunate to co-host our podcast, which is We Need Another Meeting, about product, with Josh. Josh, if you don't know, he works at HireVue, leads a product team there. The other person is Becky Higgins. If you don't know Becky, she leads a product team at Nav. And she literally is the person who gives me all the good ideas. That is, yeah. I didn't want to embarrass her. She's hid this for a long time. She's actually my wife. So there you go. You have been outed, and I feel good. All right. So I don't know what a product career looks like to everybody at a grand scale. I haven't spent much time, but I spent 20 minutes last week trying to figure out if I had to draft something to look like a product career life cycle, this is what it would look like. Forgive me for my design skills, I'm not great. But what I would suggest are there's these certain segments at the top of time, basically, and experience. You've got people who are aspiring, you have newcomers, et cetera, practitioners, all the way to leaders. And at each of those segments, they're looking for different things. They have different goals, for example, and they may be seeking information or help in their career in different aspects. So to illustrate, on this side of the screen, an individual may be focused on the skill development of practicing. On the far side, somebody may be focused on soft skills, like people skills, managing others. There is one common theme, and I'll come back to this in the end. So when the panelists are done, I'll come back to this one, and that is community. This is, I believe, the thing that really kind of is, it runs through all of these segments of a career. And I'll explain why in a little bit. I hope you figure it out throughout the discussion. All right, so before we get to that panel, we're going to talk about an initiative that Josh, Becky, and myself worked on over the last 6 to 9 months. It's called the Utah Product Report, and we created this because we recognize there's a huge gap in information around our career, at least here in Utah. There are and have been reports that you can find online about product, but they're not specific to a geographical location, and they mix in other components to it, like product marketing, which maybe that works in other geographical locations, but it doesn't work here, because I feel like our community here is product and UX, right? And I couldn't find anything about this, and one night Becky shared a report with me about, there's a company, I don't know the name of the company, their product is to deliver a report to HR professionals that states a product manager should make this much in your location, in your geographical location. And she showed this report to me, and I read it, and I saw the salary range, and I thought they're $20,000 off where it should be. And I thought that's strange, because my experience told me that product that was being provided is just wrong, and it's affecting all of us in a negative way. And so over lots of discussions over dinner and getting together with Josh and Becky, we decided to go out and actually try and figure out what we could about the market, with the vision of allowing and providing information to this community so that you could benchmark your career. And what that means is, if you're a UX professional, how many jobs should you have? How much should you make? Just basic questions. Same for product. And how do those two careers, how do they relate in those areas? So we started with Google Forms because it's so simple. And we're very simple people. So we created this thing. We tested it, of course. We used all of our practices in building product to release it. And of course, when I did release it, there were all kinds of errors throughout it. So I had to fix that really quick. But we shared it just a couple of times in the Product Hive channel. So our distribution method of getting this survey out was kind of really basic. We just reached out to the community. We knew who were active in the community, at least. Our goal was to have it out, the survey, live for 2 weeks, and collect information from at least 200 people. Why 200? We have no idea, because we don't know how big this community is. The community could be 1,000 people, it could be 10,000 people, we really do not know. I mean, we had 175 people sign up for this event today, but does that represent 80% of our population? I don't think so, but we don't know. So this is something we have to figure out over time. What we ended up getting, and this is the over time, the backdrop here. You can see how most of the respondents came in the first couple of days. We had 193 people respond over 4 weeks. So we extended it twice as long, and we got almost as many as we had set out to get. And with that data that we collected, we were able to build this report. Can I get a show of hands who's not seen this report? Great. Okay, good. So I'll tell you where you can find it. Go find it afterwards. You'll see a lot of the information here today. Not all of it, but you'll see quite a bit of it. It's utahproductreport.org is where you can find it, and you get more information about the actual the study itself and more information. So we collected this information, and disclaimer: we're not data scientists. We did our best. We didn't major in statistics or math, but we were able to at least discern from the information that we collected some good information. So that's what we're going to share with you today really quick. I'm going to talk primarily about salary, because this is the one that I get a lot of questions about, and I feel people are very reluctant to ask questions because they don't know what's taboo. So let's start out with salary based on the number of jobs that an individual has. So on our y-axis, we have salary. X-axis, we have the total number of jobs, and you can see that over time, did that switch on me? No, it didn't. Over time, that your salary does go up in terms of the total number of jobs. You can also note that the dark line is significantly lower almost consistently over those number of jobs than the light line. And the light line is PM, and you can see that UX is the dark line. Salary by the number of years. So salary over time. We asked respondents how many years they've been practicing product, and then we cross-referenced their salary with that, and that's how we plotted this out. You'll note that the trend lines are very similar, and our guess is there's a correlation. If we were data scientists, we'd be able to give you a formula that said, hey, this is why. I'm going to say that there's probably a correlation between time and the number of jobs that a person has. So a question I get all the time is, how many jobs is too many jobs? Because I'm sure a lot of us know people who tend to hop a lot, and we also know people who stay in the same job for a very long time. And both of those things could work against you and maybe even for you. It just kind of depends on your situation. So how many jobs is too many? We can't say. We don't know. It's up to you. But what we do know is that from years 0 through 6, it's pretty similar between PM and UX. We don't see a whole lot of, we don't see UX, for example, to take more jobs than PM in that first six years. I think through 6 years, we are at roughly 2.72 jobs is what people have. I am a huge believer, and I actually talk to the people that work on my team. In fact, yesterday I had this conversation with one of my teammates, which was, you should leave this job in 2 years because you're going to meet more people. You're going to learn new stuff, you expand your network, and you're going to end up making more money. In fact, I want to go back to this slide here. There's one key thing that I neglected to mention. We finally, for the very first time, I think we all realize that you can make more money when you change a job. So this is going to some other employer. But we've never really been able to pinpoint how much that job change is worth. So to illustrate what we learned for PMs, every job you change, you're going to make $11,300 more, roughly. Now that's for everybody, right? That includes product leaders, people who are just starting, but the average was around $11,300 more per job. For UX, it was $10,000. So that's the value in going out and getting a new job. And like I said, I'm a proponent of looking for new opportunities every 24 months. Now, what happened here, I'm not sure. But I do know this, we didn't have enough data from people who have been in this career this long. So we're working with really low numbers at this point, and I think it's just a total anomaly. Either that or people we just had a couple of people who had a lot of jobs, they've been there for a long time. I don't know. But all right, another question that we get, and I know a lot of people are curious about this, is what is the career path to getting into product? So this is a look at product management. You can see that there isn't one. There's no, and this is so frustrating, and I hope this inspires somebody in this room or in this community to take action, to go to our local universities and speak to them about the need to actually develop a career path or a program that gets the youth of this community involved in this career, because it's a great career. We have great lives that we live, and I would love for this community to kind of get inspired in that respect. But you can see there is no career path for PMs. The best I could come up with was 14% come from customer service and 14% come from analysts. That's it. It's unfortunate, because our friends who are user experience designers, they have a very clearly, a clear path to being a user experience designer. Obviously, with 44% of those individuals starting out in graphic design, they know exactly where you need to come. In fact, I would suspect that a lot of the people that are down here in this bucket, who are still going from school straight to work, are learning that exact skill over there. They're learning the graphic design skill. So I think it is actually quite a bit more. Another thing that was really interesting was this. And this is something that we briefly looked at in the data, and we don't have enough data to go with this, but it was kind of interesting, and that is the jumping around between product, software development, and user experience. In my 15 years of practicing product, I've known one person that has gone from from product to user experience. I know a lot of user experience designers have come into product. I know a lot of software engineers go to both of those buckets, but that's something that I definitely like to look at and explore a little bit more. I don't know why they do it, but it does happen. All right, so what's going to happen next? In your career, this is what people stated. So this is a total number of respondents, or percentages, sorry. And then this is basically what you're going to be doing next. Are you going to continue to practice? Do you want to move into leadership? Do you want to do something else? Or are you going to do a startup? These numbers were pretty similar, which I'm not surprised by. I'm not surprised either by the fact that there's more people in UX who want to continue to practice, mostly because the respondents in our survey for the UX group tended to be a lot younger. And because of that, I would expect that they wanted to continue to gain their skills, the skills they needed to become a leader, perhaps. So I think this is really kind of a representation of what I think this is a good representation of basically kind of like the age demographic that we're looking at. But it's when you look at the total number of people who really wanted to get into a startup world, I was surprised it was so low. I figured it'd be a little bit higher. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh and Becky, who are going to introduce our panelists.
Well done, well done. Hey everybody, glad to be here. Glad you're all here. This will be the really interesting part. As you saw, this was a lot of really powerful data, a lot of really interesting stuff, and it was hard as we were discussing this, like how do we do like a Q&A with this? How do we involve people? And we didn't want like someone saying, well, I'm here and I make this much and I'm interviewing for this. We didn't want it to be that specific. So we thought it'd be better to do some panelists, and we're going to field some different questions. So first off, the panelists. We've got 3 panelists. Why don't all 3 of the panelists just come up and then I'll introduce all 3 of you. Oh, you got my remote. Nice. First, and we're trying to do a representative, so we got Jeremy. Let's do a round of applause for Jeremy. Jeremy is our newcomer. He's new to product. He's done a bunch of really cool stuff. I especially think it's interesting. He was a 911 emergency dispatcher. Very cool. Skip ahead to Steve is next. Steve is kind of the practitioner. He's got some experience, senior product manager. Now at Instructure, but as you can see, he's done several different things here. Started out in information systems, project manager, like we saw on those last slides, and then lastly, we've got Emmy. So a round of applause for Emmy. Did I do one for Steve? Okay, yours is rolled into that round of applause that we just did. Emmy is our leader. I had the fortune of working with her with Kyle at Workfront, which should be labeled at task, but I was overruled on that one. But Emmy's great. I loved working with Emmy. She's really, really fantastic, as anyone in here who's ever worked with her knows as well. But she's got some great experience. Ghostery, Evidon. Yes? Okay. And then currently she's at Nav. So thank you very much for all 3 of you coming. So let me kind of describe what we're going to do here. There is a Slack channel. This looks like a password to get into Slack. It's not. This is the actual Slack channel. If you'll go into there, we've already fielded several questions. Now, Becky and I are going to kind of moderate the questions that we're going to pass to the panel, and then they've got a mic. We have tried to organize the questions topically around particularly getting into products. So we're going to start there, getting into PM and UX. Then we'll kind of go into developing skills. Then that next step, career-wise, as you go from a senior or even leader type role. And then we're going to end with some stuff around salary if we have time to get there. We don't want it to just be the questions we've got. Grateful to everyone who's posted questions. We did use those questions from the Slack channel, those ones we could pull. But we also want this to be interactive. So if anybody's got a question they wanted asked, hop into that Slack channel. Becky and I will be over here on the Slack channel looking at it, and we'll try to throw them off with the questions they've already seen with questions that they haven't seen from all of you guys. So, what am I forgetting, guys? Am I spaced anything? All right, so we're going to start with Becky asking the first question, and then, like I said, go to the Slack channel, ask more questions.
All right, our first topic is around getting started. So this question is for all three of you, but we're going to start with Emmy. So how did you become a practitioner? And in your case and Steve's, how is it different now than when you started?
Okay, so I started out my UX career not starting at a career. It was, I owned a small boutique shop called Annie Jane's, and e-commerce online was just coming around, and I needed an online store. So I checked out a book on HTML and started learning how to code and built an online web store. And then pretty soon I went from a boutique of creating little handcrafted goods to building online stores for other businesses. And then that just kind of blew up into I turned it into a freelance studio and just created marketing, web design, any kind of design product that businesses would need. And that really launched their career. From there, I think UX was just starting starting within companies in Utah, and I had recruiters reaching out to me. And that's when I went from freelance to full-time in UX.
How is it different?
How's it different now? There's actually college courses in user experience. Yeah, there's courses and not camps. Sorry. There's courses or there's a boot camps that you can go to in UX.
All right, so mine's a little different. So as Josh mentioned, I was a 911 dispatcher. So I don't know how many people have delivered a baby in here, but I have. So there's that. But when I was there, we worked with many software systems, and I was fortunate to be involved with all testing and things like that, which got my interest peaked with software. And so I transitioned over to InMoment from like an operations standpoint, and I love talking to customers and helping them solve problems. But the one thing I hated saying was when somebody discovered a bug or a feature enhancement, I hated saying, "Oh, thanks for that. I'll pass it to the product team." And that's when I knew I wanted to be in product. And so I recently transitioned over to Ragnar, where I'm an associate PM, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. And how it's changed, for me, I would say resources. So there's so many people now that you can talk to and consult about career growth. And when I was a little 911 dispatcher, I didn't really know anyone in software, and so it's changed a lot.
Cool, so I've probably got two stories, how I got into software and how I got into product. So how I got into software was similar to Emmy's story. I showed up at BYU with no money and like literally $0, and I was married. And so I looked at all the jobs, and the highest paying jobs on campus, I sorted by pay, were web developer jobs. So I'm like, okay, I could probably learn that. So I went and got an HTML book, and I bought my Dreamweaver license, and all of a sudden I thought I was a web developer. I went and got one of those jobs. So they actually agreed to let me develop websites for the law school down at BYU. And so that was just about showing up and being willing to learn, right? In terms of product, I was a project manager at a company in Washington, D.C. I was a Scrum Master when nobody knew what Scrum Masters were. And if you know anything about Scrum, their biggest responsibility is to remove impediments. And the biggest impediment that I saw was bad product managers. And so I thought, man, I really need to remove some of these product managers from their job because they're not going out and getting user information. They're not doing adequate discovery. We're building stupid crap that nobody's using. And so I said, okay, I'm going to remove these impediments, and I started doing some of their job, and then I started doing more and more and more and more of their job, until one day the boss said, we're not doing Scrum anymore, you're going to be fired. And I said, well, actually, I've been doing this thing called product, and like maybe you want to switch me over to product manager. And so on the day that I was going to be fired, the president of the company transitioned me over to product. So it's another story about just showing up and volunteering and doing, right? And the way that it's changed is that it's not as easy to just show up anymore. There's a little bit more discipline around things. There's, like Emmy mentioned, degrees and programs and courses and books and all that sort of thing. There's a discipline around it. And so I still do give the advice of, like, if you want to be in product, just start doing product in whatever role you're in. But it's a little bit harder at this point because of the discipline and structure and frameworks around it.
Great, thank you. Okay, Steve, we're going to start with you for this next question. What advice would you give to UX designer or engineer who is wondering if product management may be a better fit for them?
Yeah, so I mean, to my point of just showing up, I think if you're a UX designer and you want to peel something off from the product manager that you're working with, anyone in here who's a product manager will tell you that there's way too much work to do and not enough time to do it in. There's always more stuff that you want to be doing. And so I've had UX designers who have said, hey, let me peel some things off from you. Let me do some of that or this or the other and figure out the skills that you feel you need to grow the most in order to be a product manager and start to peel some of those things off. I'm building a career development tool right now at Instructure, and we call those stretch activities in our tool. So just try to find some stretch activities, whether you're an engineer or a UX designer, that you can peel off from someone in product and just start to do product. Because the best way to get a job is to start doing that job so well that people are like, man, it really makes sense to switch you over to that job. Am I passing it?
Yeah, Steve. So let me ask another one just kind of open. So I'm going to let you guys kind of pick who answers this one. I have met with lots of people who are looking to get into product, particularly right out of school. Should they be looking for a product role? Like, I want to be a product manager or UX designer and I should go look for that role. Or should I look for a company that is doing that right? Get some job inside the company and then try to move over. Like we saw in some of those grads, like people do all sorts of different things before they get the job, particularly for a product manager. Should they be trying to like find a good company doing product right and just get in the door, get in the company and then move over? Or maybe there's another option. So open-ended, except you just answer one, so it can't be you. It has to be one of the other two. Because I'm a jerk. Kyle will tell you that.
I would recommend getting some life experience in whatever role, whether it's a customer service call, you're talking to people dealing with problems with software, or I don't know, you have to actually go use software for your job to deal with customers, not deal with them, to work with them. Have some experience before you're going to go and lead a team. I think there needs to be a transition from graduating from college to actually experiencing the workforce, dealing with whether it's white-collar people in software or blue-collar people. Understand customers, understand business, then look for a role into product management.
Did you have more? You want to keep?
Yeah, I mean, I could add on to that. I took the approach of getting a job and then hoping to transfer within that industry. Where I was at, I was able to move around a lot and ultimately landed like an analyst product owner role, which allowed me to reach that product manager role. And so I think actually one of the stats in the product report is how many people transfer from internally, and it was like 59%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I really like that approach and just getting life skills on your plate.
Yes, please.
Just real quick, it depends, like anything, right? Like there are plenty of product management jobs out there that are focused on a very specific niche thing. They're part of a big machine where they have kind of a discipline of associate to like a junior product management and like growth program for product managers. And in Instructure, we don't do that. Like we're going to hire people who can do it now. And so it just depends on how willing you are to kind of, do a more niche piece of product management versus like leading a team and owning development and all that sort of thing. So,
how many people here are trying to get into product? If you could raise your hand. How many we got? It's a good chunk, maybe 10% or so. So if you got more questions about trying to get into product, please feel free to ask us in the Slack channel. But we're going to move on to kind of the next section, which is around kind of developing skills. So now I've got a product job, maybe junior, maybe entry level, and I want to kind of advance. So actually, Steve, let's go with you again. How do I know if I have the skills to be junior versus mid versus senior? Like, what is that split? Like, how do I know which one I am?
And so in terms of getting more and more and more senior, the thing that I think sets people apart is the ability to lead. And when I talk about leadership, I don't mean like, can you inspire your development team? Can you work with your designer? Because that's basic product management. If we're talking senior stuff, we're talking the ability to get in the room with marketing and inspire them to go in the right direction. We're talking about understanding the business and how it operates. We're talking about getting deep with customer success and understanding strategically how your role as a product manager fits within the organization across all of the departments. And so when I look at a senior product manager, it's somebody who can really get in the room and own the whole business of what they're building and doing. When we talk about just a general product manager, that's somebody who can really own the room in terms of execution around understanding user needs, building some designs, and then executing from an engineering perspective. So I think to advance, you just need to get more and more understanding of the business and how it works and how product fits into the business.
Okay, Emmy, which skills travel the best in product? Which ones are best for going from one company to another company, you know what I mean? Like, what are the things I want to do now if I'm that junior person that are going to be most useful for me on that next job?
I didn't study this question.
If you want to give it back to Steve or somebody else and think about it first, I'm okay with that. But
No, I'm just thinking through working with product managers and what traveled over. Customer research, understanding how to research and look through analytics, figure out what priorities, setting priorities. That travels. Yeah, sorry, I'm probably going to pass this one off to our product managers.
well, it applies to UX
Can I
as
do
well.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, UX, basic design skills are going to always travel along. Being able to work through conflict with individuals.
Yeah, interpersonal skills.
Yeah, interpersonal skills. How you overcame an industry. This sounds interesting that it doesn't seem like it would carry over, but if you are able to break into an industry, figuring out how to do that can then carry over to another job. So meaning you're creating a product that needs to be different from your competitors, learning how to analyze your competitors, look at the numbers, figure out what would make a difference. That I think carries over from job to job.
Nice. Jeremy, how do you best combat the must-have X years experience in order to apply? Like every job role says must have 5 years experience, product experience. How do you get over that, particularly if you don't have 5 years product experience?
Who reads that anyway, right? I mean, when I was applying for everything. So we'll go with that. Just kidding. So I would say it goes back to the previous question, transferable skills. And so you need to be able to market yourself and your skills and how you can fit into product. And so I took a different approach than maybe a lot of you. And I didn't have the product manager title, and so I needed to stand out. And so what I did, I actually interviewed at Solution Reach and interviewed at other companies, and it's okay, you don't need to hide, Ben. But one thing that I did, and maybe they'll tell us if it was a good idea or a bad idea, but I did a mini case study for the companies I was interviewing for. And so Solution Reach, we'll just use that as an example. And so I got an interview, and I went online, and I found one of their products. And I took a screenshot of the product, and I did what a product manager does. And I identified a problem, and then I came up with a solution for it. And I did something really small. I found a problem small because I didn't want to offend anyone. But then I put together a small 20-page case study. And I really wanted to just show the company that I understood product and I knew what I was talking about and that I was teachable and passionate. And I think those two words really, if you leave this meeting, those are the two words you should take, being teachable and having passion.
David, out there, I promise we're going to get to your question about wasting your money on rent in New York City, so we'll get to that one. But actually, I want to spend a little more time on kind of the skills things, because I think most of us here are current product people, PM and UX. Let's go back to Emmy. How do you assess your own skills? How do you assess them? How do you build them? All of that.
How do I assess my own skills? So I think it's necessary in my job that I need to be able to work with people and be able to deliver products that meet the market need or make money for the business. So if I am dealing with conflict, I often look at myself and say, okay, am I missing a soft skill that I need to develop? Is there something I'm doing that's offending someone or causing conflict in the room? What can I do to change myself so that we don't have this conflict and we can align quicker? If my product is not making money or getting new users, I need to sit down with my product manager or product team and figure out what can we do better with the design to get it there. And always checking on those two things, making sure I'm aligned, and is my product meeting the market need? That's how I assess my skills. If I'm improving those, then I feel that I add value to the company. As a design manager, there's more than that. Are my employees happy? Are they challenged? Am I giving them enough challenge, enough work to do that they feel like they enjoy the company? And if not, I need to look back and see what can I do better.
Oh, that's perfect. I was about to hand this back over to Becky and move on to the next section, but I got one more that's Brandon's question. Let's do, so Brandon, I'm going to tweak it ever so slightly because to make it relate to skills. Steve, what are like the skills around building artifacts, product vision, roadmap, idea, proposal, documents? How important are those, developing those skills when transferring to a new job? Or are those really not the most important skills to develop, like the artifact creation, like that aspect of being a product manager? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
And sorry, Brandon, if I totally butchered your question.
So, I mean, I'm going to change the question a little bit. Like, tell me the difference between the importance of transferable skills versus job-specific skills. This is something that we talk about a lot when we're building our career development product. The most important skills are those transferable skills. Some people call them soft skills. The number one skill that I'm interested in a product manager is empathy. Nate Walkingshaw talks about this a lot. One of my favorite product books, Design a Better Business, talks about discovery, ideation, building models, and then testing those models, and making sure that you move from an individual level of scale to world-changing scale. I think the biggest thing that product managers do wrong is skip to this place where I have an idea that I think can change the world, which skips discovery and truly empathizing with users, and it also skips that individual level of scale. And so for me, what I'm looking for in product managers is that empathy and those transferable kind of softer skills. I feel like I can teach people, like my template for PRDs or product canvases or whatever like document or artifact I'm going to use as part of my process. That's all pretty easily teachable, especially if I've got somebody who's got leadership capabilities, can communicate effectively, understands how to empathize not only with the user, but with every other aspect of the business. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next section about getting to the next level. So for all of you, when you're interviewing for a new role, how can you tell which companies are doing product right? And what are the different things for the different roles that make you know whether that's the right fit for you?
Is this for anybody? Do you guys want?
Yeah, you want to start it?
How do I know if people are doing product right? So the way that they interview you, the types of questions that they're asking, whether they're trying to get at your ability to interview, or not, whether they're trying to get at your ability to interview, whether they're trying to get at your ability to build product, whether they're trying to get at your ability to empathize with users, what is it that they're trying to look for as they're interviewing you is a good piece. Another piece is like, do they have a good product or a shitty product, right? Like, look at their products, and if they're good, there's probably something to them having a decent process and that sort of thing. I like to ask about how people work with engineering and design, because I think one of the most key components of product management done right is this kind of triumvirate. I don't know if you've read Product Leadership with Nate Walkingshaw and Richard Banfield, and I can't remember the other one.
Martin Erickson.
It's a great book, but they talk about this triumvirate of product where all of the processes of product, from discovery to ideation to building models and prototypes to developing and testing those ideas, are done by that triumvirate. So a product manager working in lockstep with a designer and a lead engineer. And so if you can get to the bottom of how that relationship works at a business, is it siloed? Does there seem to be friction in that? Are we talking about Scrum every third sentence? Because if they are, that's a company I'm running really far away from, personally at least. So That's my thoughts.
So 2 questions that I like to ask were when companies iterated, how often? So if they're not iterating, obviously they're not releasing products. And everyone's probably heard this before, but done is better than perfect. Because if you're not iterating, you're never going to get a product out there, right? And then the other question, I like to just ask why they're filling that role. So with the company I'm at now, Ragnar, it was a new position. And so it showed me that they were growing and they were actively involved in technology and product. And so those are the 2 things that I focused on.
I think the interview questions can be a sign of what they're struggling with. So as they ask questions like, how would you deal with such and such or this? I can think in my head, is that a problem I actually want to be solving? Because they're trying to interview to find someone that can solve that problem. I look at how well the relationship between the product management team and the UX team is working together. Because if the PMs are struggling to find vision or actually deliver a product, as a UX designer, I would never be happy at that company. I would be stuck trying to manage the product manager and not actually build product. And so those are things I look for. Have they been able to ship? Do they align on their vision? Do they work together well? Or are they asking questions about problems of conflict? And then I think back, okay, can I resolve this when I come into the job, or is this something I probably want to get away from?
Great. Okay, this one should be a little bit more lighthearted. What is one book or article you recently read that made a strong impression? And I'd like all 3 of you to answer.
Like a business impression, or, okay.
It could be personal, career, anything, inspirational for you.
Sorry. I read my first comic book 2 nights ago, and I stayed up really late finishing it. It was the Ultimate Iron Man by Orson Scott Card. But my daughter, wants to be in animation, she was studying it for storyboards, and I got really into the story and the storyboard artwork. So
It's a graphic novel.
it's a graphic novel. It's a comic book. Anyways. Can I be inspired by that? Okay. I was just thinking in my head, like how to communicate like storyboards or vision, and how to catch like areas of action in a product. Yeah, sorry, that's the last book.
I don't know, maybe it would help us if you acted the comic out. So my article was actually one that was posted in the Slack channel for Product Hive in the product management tab. And I kind of felt silly reading it because somebody asked if they knew like the difference between job stories and user stories. And so I toned in on that article, and at Ragnar we use user stories, and we're actually going to switch to job stories because I brought up this article and we're going to try that out. So if you haven't read that article, it's in Slack. It's really good.
So 2 days ago in Fast Company, the article is Why Bad Technology Dominates Our Lives, according to Don Norman. So who knows who Don Norman is? Yeah, all the UX designers just raised their hand, right? Design of Everyday Things, one of the Bibles for design. But 2 quotes from that. We need to switch from a technology-centric view of the world to a people-centric one. We should start with people's abilities and create technology that enhances people's capabilities. Why are we doing it backwards? We must change our mindset from being technology-centric to become people-centric. Instead of starting with the technology and attempting to make it easy to understand and use, let us take human capabilities and use technology to expand our abilities. We need to return to one of the core properties of human-centered design, solve the fundamental issues in people's lives. And so I just think that that's kind of at the core of why I do what I do. I call it augmented humanity. So we've got augmented reality out there and artificial intelligence and all of those sorts of things. Those things are only cool if it's augmenting humanity. And so I really was inspired by that piece by Don. So.
Okay, this is the last question and getting to the next level. What are the resources that you use to hone your product expertise? And maybe what do you do more frequently and what do you do less frequently to hone that?
So I'll go real quick since I have the mic. Since I talked about cross-functional leadership being the way that you go from PM to senior PM, I think your biggest resource is to step outside of product as a single discipline and understand the rest of the business. And so the best resource that I've had is to go to sales leaders and marketing leaders and customer success leaders and ask them what I can do better. How can I better put the work that I'm doing in context of the broader business? That's going to help you to level up from that junior to senior to director to VP of product the most.
So as a newer product manager, I'm like a sponge. So you tell me something and I'll believe you. So one thing that I try to do is I have a personal board of directors. And so it's people that are close to me that I kind of bounce ideas off of and ask for advice about product. So if you don't have your own board of directors, I recommend you get one. Just close friends, people you work with, but it really helps you grow as a professional.
I like to look for mentors, both virtually, where I can follow articles they're writing or things that they're doing with their teams, and then people I can meet with one-on-one or get feedback on my own performance. As far as design, people I work with often teach me a lot of new tricks or ways to do things. I'll do freelance projects where I'm working with a whole different industry and working with a different group of people, but I try to rotate things so I can see new styles, new tools being used, and stay up to date.
All right, we're going to do just 2 more questions about salary. David, Becky overruled me and said I can't ask your question about getting a job in New York. Sorry. So you can go ask Becky. And then we're just going to wrap it up. So we just got 2 more, and then we're going to close. But these last couple are obviously really critical, particularly to everybody here. So let's start with, truthfully, probably one of the most impactful ones is, women make $15,000 less than men each year in base salary. What companies or leaders are investing in fixing this? What can I do as an individual to fix this? How can we get to the root of the problem? We haven't pre-assigned these, so these are kind of open-ended as far as which of the 3 of you would like to answer these questions. So let's start with, and maybe even the audience, like who do we know in terms of companies that are really trying to combat this? And to you 3, but also if anyone knows of anyone. Right here. Thank you very much for hosting us. Yes.
We just added new benefits for women and men, but we just got parental leave for 3 weeks. We decided that our director or VP of people and culture is a very big advocate for women's rights.
Nice.
And she's made us sign up to the Parity Pledge, just signed that. There's a lot of good things happening for women.
Now, a round of applause for Solution Reach. That's awesome. Like, sincerely. Did you guys want to? Yeah, please.
I'm super passionate about this. Particularly being in Utah. I came from DC, and it's a different culture here for women. And, I'm kind of tired of it. And I think there's 2 really important things in terms of helping with parity for women. Number 1 is transparency. So, talk to each other about how much you make. HR doesn't want you to, but do it anyway. It'll help women to know how much value they have in the market, how much they should be looking for. And yeah, they might get sad for a minute because they're at a job making less than somebody else, but they'll fix it somehow, either by talking to someone in HR, talking to their manager, finding a new job if they have to, right? So transparency is number 1, and number 2 is sponsorship. And so when we talk, there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship, and men have a significant responsibility to sponsor women, particularly in Utah. So identify women who are just killing it and push them up and make sure that they're getting the things that they deserve in terms of title and recognition and praise and money and rewards and everything else. So transparency and sponsorship.
Any other tips on how to fix this, how to promote it from any of the, please?
I think in any management role I come into, we've come in and looked at salaries and made sure that they're level set. And I've come in and we've had women that are 20, 30,000 less at the same experience and immediately brought them up. That just makes me angry that that's happening. I think it's also when you go in to negotiate your salary, when you're coming into a company. I think my first job, I came in and I said, well, I'd like to make this much. And the manager looked at me and he's like, well, I'm paying all the guys double that. He's like, I'm going to set your salary actually up here. And I really appreciated that my first job in the UX field, he gave a more appropriate salary than the one I was asking for. I think also negotiating when you're coming in or asking for a raise. Say, be straightforward. Don't be cowardly. And this is for the females in the room. Say, I've done this. Here are the things I performed well at. I'd like a raise. Okay. I mean, they can only say no. They're not going to get mad. Or they can say, okay, I want to see this happen, and here's the time span I want to see it happen in. But keep on pushing. And what's likely going to happen, that manager is going to go to their manager or to figure out where the budget's going to come from. That's the best thing to do. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask for more.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to double check and make sure. Michael, yes, please go look at the Utah product report for some more details on that.
Just add one more thing, Josh.
Oh, please, yes.
So, similar to what Emmy said, like, do your research, go into a job and know what you're worth and what they're offering. So Glassdoor is a huge resource. Just imagine applying for a job, a product manager role at a certain company, and let's say that they're offering $80,000, and someone puts a requirement of $40,000. Like, what's that going to show the company that you're valuing yourself at half of what they're paying? And so really do your research and know, like, around what they're offering and know your worth, and don't be afraid to ask.
Sorry, one more thing. So every time I switch jobs, I hire an HR consultant. It might sound a little silly, but people in HR have access to data and tools that are way better than Glassdoor. And so I've got a friend, her name's Rochelle, and she's worked in HR for many years. She's got access to all the tools. I call her up when I'm switching jobs, and I say, hey, I'm switching jobs. This is kind of the salary they're looking at. What should I negotiate to? And I pay her about $250, and she gets me about $8,000 more in salary. So it's totally worth it for both her and me, and it helps everybody out. So.
You know what, let's wrap up there. I think that's a good note to end on and to leave with. So round of applause, please, for our panelists. You don't have to stay on the stage. You're welcome to come down if you want.
Okay, a round of applause not only to these two, but Becky and Josh as well, and the whole team that is here helping us organize this. All the guys in the back who have helped set up all of this, I just want to say thanks to all of you, so thank you. This is the last slide and the last thought, and this is the only advice that I would say to anybody who wants to advance their career. If you're serious about advancing your career and you're ready to start getting involved with it, as I mentioned earlier, we're not always looking to do that. Sometimes we're really busy, but when you are ready to do it, get involved with the community. That's the very first step I would recommend. So what that looks like for me is getting involved in this capacity, or maybe giving another talk, writing a blog post, going to breakfast. I go to breakfast or lunch with one person from this community every other week. That's my goal. And I would suggest to all of you, I think somebody talked about a product board. I would suggest the same thing for all of you. And if you get involved with the community, it'll come back to you. So that's it. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.